Tano was born in a small African village called Kawinda, where the land was red with dust and the sun always glowed warmly. From the day he opened his eyes, everyone noticed he was different. His skin had a soft blue color that shone under the sunlight, like the river reflecting the sky. The villagers whispered that he was cursed, a bad omen sent by the spirits. When he was old enough to walk, children began to tease him. They pointed at him and shouted names that cut deep into his heart. Blue Ghost, they called him, running away as if he carried disease. Tano tried to smile, hoping they would stop, but every day brought more laughter and cruelty. Even grown men and women avoided him. Some mothers told their children not to play near him. The market women would stop talking when he passed by. The only person who loved him without fear was his mother, Mama Zuri. She was kind and strong, and she never hid him from the world. Every night she would hold him close and say, "Your color is not your curse, my son. It is your gift. One day they will understand what I see." Her words warmed Tano's heart, but still he wished the world could see him the same way. At school life was no easier. The other children refused to sit near him. When he touched the chalkboard, some claimed it turned cold. His teacher, Mr. Kato, tried to protect him, but even he sometimes looked nervous when Tano raised his hand to answer. The boy began to spend his breaks alone, sitting under an old baobab tree where no one bothered him. From there, he watched the birds fly freely and wondered if they ever got judged for their colors. One afternoon, after another long day of laughter and whispers, Tano came home crying. His shirt was torn and his knees were bruised. Mama Zuri stopped her work and ran to him. "What happened, my son?" she asked softly. He wiped his tears and said, "They don't like me, Mama. They say I am a bad sign. I wish I was like them." Mama Zuri knelt beside him, touching his blue cheeks with her warm brown hands. "No, Tano. You are not meant to be like them. You are meant to be better. The world fears what it doesn't understand. But one day this same world will look for your light." That night, when the moon was full and white, Tano stood outside their small hut and looked at the stars. He wondered if there were others like him somewhere, people with blue skin who were not afraid to smile. He promised himself that he would not let the hate of others decide his future. The next morning he returned to school. When the children laughed, he stayed quiet. When they threw pebbles, he didn't run away. He sat under the baobab tree and opened his small notebook, drawing pictures of the world he wished to see: houses for every family, clean water for every child, and skies filled with colors. He dreamed of making things that help people. Days turned into months, and though the bullying never fully stopped, Tano's heart grew stronger. He started helping old women carry firewood, fixing broken pots for neighbors, and teaching younger children how to read. Slowly, some people began to see his kindness. An old man named Baba Limo once said, "That blue boy has a good heart. Maybe the spirits blessed him after all." Still, many others refused to change. When Tano walked through the market, some sellers covered their goods, thinking his shadow would bring misfortune. He learned to ignore the whispers, focusing instead on learning everything he could from books and from life. One day a traveling teacher came to Kawinda. His name was Mr. Kibu. He had come from the city to teach the village children new skills: reading, writing, and even how to use small machines. When he saw Tano's blue skin, he looked surprised but not afraid. Instead he smiled. "You are different," he said, "but different can mean special. You remind me of the ocean, calm, deep, and full of secrets." Those words touched Tano deeply. For the first time, someone outside his mother saw him as something more than strange. Mr. Kibu gave him a broken radio and said, "If you can fix this, you can fix anything." Tano spent nights working on it. He opened the box, studied the wires, and asked his mother for help when he got confused. After many tries, the radio crackled and played music. When the villagers heard the sound, they were amazed. "The blue boy fixed it," they said. Some were still unsure, but curiosity replaced some of the fear. From that day, Tano became known as the boy who could fix things. People brought him broken lamps, old phones, and watches. He repaired them all with patience and care. Mama Zuri watched with pride. "You see, Tano," she said one evening, "your gift is not your color. It is your mind and your heart. Never forget that." Tano began to believe her words more each day. Even though people still stared, he no longer felt small. He had discovered something powerful. His worth did not come from how others saw him but from what he did for others. One rainy night, as thunder rolled through the sky, he sat under the roof of his mother's hut, fixing a lamp for a neighbor. The light flickered, then shone bright. Tano smiled. "One day," he whispered, "I will build something bigger. Something that will make people remember my name not for my color, but for my work." He did not know it then, But that small spark of hope was the beginning of a future that would change his life and his village forever. The boy with blue skin was learning that every insult, every tear, and every lonely day had shaped him into something extraordinary, a young man with courage brighter than the sun. And while the villagers still whispered behind his back, somewhere deep in their hearts, a few had begun to wonder, maybe Mama Zuri was right all along. Maybe the blue boy was not a curse, but a blessing they were too blind to see. When Tano became a young man, he decided to leave Kawinda village. He had grown tired of the whispers, the laughter, and the cruel stares. His mother cried when he told her, but she understood. "The world is bigger than this village," she said softly. "Go, my son. Find a place where your dreams can grow." Tano packed a small bag with his few clothes, a loaf of bread, and the tiny radio he once fixed as a boy. As he walked away, Mama Zuri stood at the edge of the dusty road waving until he disappeared. The road to Nairobi was long and full of strangers. The buses were crowded and some passengers shifted away when they saw his blue skin. He sat quietly looking out the window thinking of what his mother had said, that his color was a gift, not a curse. When he arrived in Nairobi, the noise and lights overwhelmed him. Tall buildings touched the sky, and cars filled the streets like a moving river. Tano had never seen such a busy place. He had no friends and nowhere to stay. That first night, he slept near a closed shop with his bag under his head. People passing by stared, some laughed, and one man even shouted, "What kind of person has skin like that?" Tano said nothing. He simply closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "I will not give up." Days turned into weeks. He searched for work everywhere, at garages, hotels, and construction sites. But no one wanted to hire a man who looked different. Some said he would scare customers. Others just laughed at him. Still, he did not lose hope. One afternoon, as he walked through the market, he saw a man struggling to fix an old phone. Tano watched carefully, then asked, "May I try?" The man looked doubtful but handed him the phone. Tano opened it, checked the wires, and within minutes the screen lit up. The man was shocked. "How did you do that?" he asked. "I just understand how things work," Tano replied with a shy smile. The man gave him a small coin for his help. It was the first money Tano had earned in the city. That night, he bought bread and water and sat on the roadside, eating with tears of relief. For the first time since leaving home, he felt a spark of hope. The next day, Tano returned to the same spot with a small cardboard sign that read, "Phone repair, honest work." People laughed when they saw it, but a few curious ones stopped by. Soon he began fixing more phones. He worked carefully, charging very little and always keeping his promises. Word spread slowly through the market. The blue-skinned man could fix anything. A woman named Aisha, who sold fruits nearby, began talking to him. She was one of the few people who treated him kindly. "You have magic in your hands, Tano," she said one afternoon as he repaired her old phone. He smiled and replied, "No, not magic. Just patience." Weeks passed and Tano's small roadside table became busy. He saved every coin in a tin box under his mat. At night, he would count them and dream of opening a real shop one day. Sometimes Aisha brought him food saying, "You forget to eat when you work." He was grateful for her friendship. But not everyone was kind. Some boys from the market teased him, calling him names and knocking over his tools. One day they smashed one of the phones he had just repaired. Tano did not fight back. He only picked up the broken pieces and whispered, "You can break what I fix, but not my spirit." The next morning he returned to work again. His quiet strength made some people respect him even more. Months went by and Tano's repairs became famous in the area. One evening, a man in a suit approached him with a broken tablet. "I've been told you are the best around," the man said. Tano nodded politely and took the device. After a few minutes, the screen flickered back to life. The man was amazed. "You have great skill," he said. "I own a small electronics store and I need someone like you." Tano could hardly believe his ears. The man's name was Mr. Kamau, and he offered Tano a place to work and live. It was the chance he had prayed for. That night, he thanked the stars and whispered, "Mama, your words were true." Working in Mr. Kamau's shop changed everything. Tano learned about new tools and machines. Customers came from far away, curious to see the blue-skinned man who could fix anything. Some came just to stare, but most left impressed. He treated everyone with kindness and respect, no matter how they looked at him. Mr. Kamau soon noticed that business had grown because of Tano's honesty and patience. "You are not just talented, Tano," he said one day. "You have a good heart. That is rare." He gave Tano a share of the profits, saying he had earned it. Tano sent part of his money back to Kawinda, so his mother could live comfortably. When Mama Zuri received the first envelope of money, she cried tears of joy and prayed for her son every night. Years passed and Tano kept learning. He started building small gadgets, solar lamps, chargers, and radio parts. His inventions helped poor families who could not afford expensive products. A local journalist heard about him and wrote a story titled, "The Blue Man with a Golden Heart." The article spread quickly and soon people from all over the city came to meet him. One morning, a big investor from another company visited the shop. He said, "Tano, I want to help you start your own business. Your ideas can change lives." Tano was shocked. He remembered his lonely nights on the street and smiled softly. "I will never forget where I came from," he said. With the investor's help, he opened a small workshop and named it Blue Tech, to remind himself that what others once mocked had become his strength. He hired young people from poor families and trained them. He told them, "Do not be ashamed of who you are. The world will see your worth if you do not give up." Every morning as he walked to his new office, people greeted him with respect. Even those who once laughed now came to him for jobs and advice. But Tano never acted proud. He stayed humble, still fixing small things himself, still remembering the boy who once sat under the baobab tree. And somewhere far away in Kawinda village, Mama Zuri would often sit outside her hut, listening to the new radio her son had sent her. When the news spoke about the young inventor named Tano, she would smile proudly and whisper to the wind, "They see now, my son. They finally see." Tano worked day and night to grow his small workshop into something bigger. What started as a table by the roadside soon became a real company. He named it Blue Tech, proudly using his blue skin as a symbol of strength and identity. To him, it meant that what once brought him pain was now the reason for his success. In the beginning things were not easy. Many people still doubted him. Investors laughed when they first saw him. Some said, "No one will buy from a man with blue skin." But Tano never argued. He only smiled and said, "Let my work speak." And it did. The first few products he made, small solar lamps and affordable radios, became very popular in villages where electricity was scarce. People loved how simple and strong his designs were. Soon Blue Tech began to grow. Tano hired young men and women who had no jobs. He trained them patiently, teaching them not only how to fix machines but how to believe in themselves. "In this company," he said, "we build hope, not just tools." His workers respected him deeply. They called him Mzee Tano, meaning Elder Tano, even though he was still young. As months passed, Blue Tech's name started appearing in newspapers. Reporters wrote about the mystery man behind the company, a quiet genius who refused to show his face in interviews. He wanted people to focus on his work, not his appearance. Few knew that the successful businessman was once a boy who had been bullied for the color of his skin. Tano spent most of his time designing new inventions. He created solar-powered school lamps for children who studied at night. He built water filters for dry villages, and he even made low-cost phones that helped farmers connect to buyers directly. Every idea came from a memory, the struggles he had seen in Kawinda and other villages. He told his team, "We are not just building machines. We are changing lives." His kindness spread quickly. One day, a group of students visited his workshop to learn about technology. Tano walked among them quietly, wearing simple clothes and a cap. The students did not know who he was. They saw him cleaning tools and thought he was just another worker. When the real manager introduced him as the founder, the students gasped. Tano smiled and said, "Never let anyone tell you that you are too small to do something great." As the years went by, Blue Tech opened branches in different parts of Africa. In Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Ghana. Tano traveled across the continent, meeting people and learning their needs. He was amazed to see how his small dream had become a movement that brought light to thousands of homes. But even with all the success, Tano remained humble. He still lived in a modest house, wore simple clothes, and never forgot his mother. Every month, he sent money to Kawinda and built her a new home. He also helped the villagers who once mocked him. He never spoke about the past, but his actions said enough. In one interview, a journalist asked him, "Why did you name your company Blue Tech?" Tano smiled and replied, "Because blue reminds me of the sky. No matter how much people tried to bring me down, I learned to rise like the sky, open and endless." The reporter was moved by his words and published the story across national newspapers. People everywhere admired the mystery billionaire who spoke with such humility and grace. At Blue Tech headquarters, Tano created a special rule. No one was allowed to mock or judge others based on looks or background. He said, "When I was young, people laughed at me because I looked different. But kindness built this company, not cruelty." Those words became the heart of Blue Tech's culture. Workers supported each other like family. One rainy afternoon while walking through his factory, Tano saw a young boy sitting alone outside the gate. The boy's clothes were torn and his eyes were full of sadness. Tano asked him what was wrong. The boy said, "They laugh at me because my face has marks. I want to learn but no one lets me." Tano looked at him quietly for a moment and then said, "Come inside. From today you will learn here." That boy later became one of Blue Tekka's best engineers. Blue Tekka's success soon reached international markets. People from other countries wanted to buy Tano's inventions. Yet he never changed his mission. He said, "If my inventions do not help my people, then they mean nothing." He used his profits to build schools, hospitals, and community centers. Years later, Blue Tekka celebrated its 10th anniversary. The company had grown from one man's dream to thousands of workers across Africa. There was a big celebration at the main office. Reporters, business leaders, and government officials attended. When it was time for Tano to speak, he stood on the stage looking over the crowd. The lights reflected softly off his blue skin, and for a moment there was silence. He spoke slowly and clearly. "I was once a boy who was laughed at because I looked different. I ran from my village because I was tired of being called names. But I learned that pain can be power if you use it wisely. Blue Tekka was built from pain turned into hope. My message is simple: never be ashamed of who you are." The audience clapped and cheered. Some even had tears in their eyes. That night, photos of Tano's speech spread all over the internet. People called him the Blue Billionaire with a golden heart. Still, Tano never let fame change him. The next morning he returned to his office, sat with his workers and helped repair a broken solar panel. When one of them said, "Sir, you are too important to do this," Tano only smiled. "No one is too important to help another person," he said. But deep inside he often thought about Kawinda. The village where everything began still lived in his heart. He remembered the faces that once laughed at him, the days he went hungry, and the nights he spent dreaming under the stars. He wanted to go back one day not as a rich man, but as a son who brought light home. That thought kept him humble, focused, and full of purpose. Every time he looked at his reflection, his blue skin shining softly, he felt no sadness, only gratitude. What others once hated had become his greatest strength. And so, Blue Tekka continued to rise, touching lives across Africa, one invention at a time. People admired the company but only a few knew the real story, that behind the success of Blue Tekka stood a man who once had nothing but courage, a dream, and the color blue. Years had passed since Tano had left Kawinda village. The boy with blue skin had grown into a man known across Africa for his inventions and kindness. Yet, despite all his success, he never forgot the dusty roads, the laughter, and the lonely nights he spent under the baobab tree. One morning he decided it was time to return home. He wore simple clothes and carried nothing but a small bag and a heart full of memories. As Tano walked into the village, whispers started immediately. Women stopped their work, children peeked from behind walls, and even the elders gathered quietly watching. "Is that him?" someone muttered. "The boy, the blue one?" They could not recognize him at first. His skin was still blue, but his eyes shone with confidence and calm. His shoulders were straight, and there was an air about him that made even the bravest villagers step back. The children who had once teased him did not know what to say. Some covered their mouths in shame, others stared in awe. They remembered the boy who ran from them, and now here was a man who seemed almost larger than life. Tano walked slowly through the village, greeting people with a gentle smile. He did not speak of the past, but everyone felt the power in his presence. He first went to the old baobab tree where he had once sat alone. He touched the rough bark with his hands, remembering the nights he cried there. Then he walked to the small school that had no windows, no doors, and very few books. He knelt and studied the broken benches and torn textbooks. Children watched from afar, unsure if the stranger would help them or leave. Tano called out to the villagers. "I have come to help," he said softly. "I want every child to learn and every family to have clean water. No one should be hungry or left behind." At first, the villagers were silent. Many could not believe their ears. They whispered among themselves, realizing that the boy they had mocked was now the man who could change their lives. The elders who had once told him to leave stepped forward. One of them, Chief Lemba, bowed his head and said, "We were wrong, Tano. We did not see your heart. Forgive us." Tano smiled kindly. "I do not come for anger or revenge. I come to help, as my mother taught me, with love and patience." He began by building a new school. He brought in benches, books, and blackboards. He painted the walls bright colors, just as he had once dreamed under the night sky. The children ran to touch the walls and explore the rooms, laughing in joy. Tano watched quietly, remembering the times he had wished for such a place when he was their age. Next, he dug wells and brought fresh water to the village. Villagers came together to help, amazed at the tools and machines he had brought. Women filled their buckets and drank eagerly, children splashed in the clean water, and even the old men who had doubted him smiled with relief. Tano worked with them, showing them how to maintain the pumps and take care of the new wells. The villagers began to understand that the man they had feared and mocked was not someone to avoid, but someone to respect. The children who had teased him were especially humbled. They came forward, some timidly, and said, "We are sorry, Tano. We did not know you were so special." Tano knelt to their level and said, "It is never too late to learn kindness. You can help others just as I am helping you now." Even the marketplace has changed. Sellers who once refused him invited him in. They wanted to learn how he built his company and how his inventions could help their lives. Tano did not boast. He taught patiently, explaining how simple ideas could grow into tools that helped everyone. People began to call him the blue man who brought light. Mama Zuri watched from the small house she now lived in. She had tears in her eyes as she saw her son walk through the village, helping people and spreading hope. She remembered the boy who had been laughed at and the man who had returned. "My son," she whispered, "you were always special." Tano stayed in the village for many months, working with the people to improve their lives. He trained teachers for the school, taught villagers how to use simple machines for farming, and even helped build a small clinic. Each day he walked among the villagers, smiling and offering guidance. His presence alone changed the way people acted toward one another. They no longer laughed at differences or judged anyone for being unusual. Some villagers asked him how he became so successful. Tano would smile and say, "I worked hard, I stayed honest, and I always helped others. Your color, your looks, your past, none of it can stop you if your heart is strong." When the village held a celebration for the opening of the school and wells, Tano stood on the small stage. Children sang songs, elders danced, and everyone cheered. The blue man they had once mocked was now the hero of their village. People could hardly believe it. Some even apologized publicly to their neighbors for how they had treated Tano when he was a boy. At night, Tano would walk alone under the stars. He thought of all the children who were still lonely, scared, or laughed at. He promised himself that he would keep helping others, no matter where he went. He had returned to Kawinda not for fame, but to show that courage, kindness, and hard work could overcome any cruelty. The village slowly transformed. Parents taught their children to be kind and patient. They told stories of Tano's return, reminding everyone that one's past does not define their future. The children who once bullied him began helping others, inspired by his actions. And through it all, Tano remained humble, still smiling quietly, still walking in simple clothes, still treating every villager with respect. For the first time, Kawinda village felt a new hope. People began to see that differences were not weaknesses but strengths. They understood that the boy with blue skin, once a target of ridicule, had become a man who brought change, prosperity, and pride to them all. And in his heart, Tano felt peace. The laughter that once hurt him no longer mattered. What mattered was that he had returned home, not as a boy who was mocked, but as a man who made a difference. The villagers had learned their lesson. Never judge someone by how they look, for greatness may come from the most unexpected places. Tano stood before the crowd in Kawinda village, his blue skin shining softly in the sunlight. Children surrounded him, their eyes wide with curiosity, and the elders watched with quiet respect. The village square, once filled with whispers and laughter at his expense, was now full of hope and excitement. Tano took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years gone by, the loneliness, the fear, and the teasing he had endured as a boy. But he also felt pride, for he had turned all that pain into something meaningful. He looked at the children who were playing near the well he had helped build. Their laughter reminded him of his own childhood, a time when he had longed for friends and for people to see him for who he truly was. Many of these children had never seen anyone like him, yet they had learned to accept him not because of his unusual skin, but because of his actions and the kindness he showed. "I came not to punish but to show that kindness is stronger than hate," Tano said softly, his voice steady and calm. He looked over the faces of the villagers, seeing some who had once mocked him and some who had ignored him. There was a hush as everyone listened. He wanted them to understand that no one becomes great through cruelty, and that true power comes from helping others. He began to tell his story in simple words, recalling the days when he had been laughed at under the baobab tree. "When I was a boy, many of you did not understand me. Some laughed, some ignored me, and some even feared me. But I never let anger grow in my heart. I focused on learning, on helping others, and on becoming a better person. And slowly that made all the difference. The villagers listened quietly, realizing for the first time how wrong they had been. Some of the elders who had once scolded their children for playing with Tano, now felt deep shame. Children who had thrown stones at him so many years ago lowered their heads, understanding that cruelty only harms those who act on it, not the one who suffers. Tano smiled at a group of young girls who were sitting near the edge of the crowd. He remembered being a boy who wished for friends, someone to talk to, someone who would see him for more than his blue skin. Always remember, he said gently, that how you treat others is what shapes the world. Kindness can heal wounds that hate can never touch. One small act of help can change a life forever. He went on to explain how he had used the opportunities he found in Nairobi and through his company Blue Tech, not just to build wealth, but to build tools that helped others. He spoke of the solar lamps that lit villages, the clean water wells, and the schools he had created. Each invention, each act, was a step to show that everyone, no matter their appearance or past, could contribute something valuable. One boy named Juma raised his hand shyly. "Tano, were you ever angry at us for laughing at you?" he asked. Tano looked at him kindly. "Yes, sometimes I felt hurt," he said. "But I never let that hurt control me. I learned that holding anger only stops you from growing. Forgiving, helping, and moving forward, that is how we turn pain into strength." The villagers began to see the truth in his words. Some mothers held their children close, whispering that they should never judge someone by looks alone. Fathers nodded, realizing that their teachings needed to include respect and compassion. The lesson was simple yet powerful. Everyone has a heart, and every heart deserves to be treated with kindness. After the speech, Tano walked through the village, speaking to people one by one. He encouraged the young boys to study and the girls to dream big. He showed them that even a child from a small, poor village could become someone who changed the world, not through force, but through honesty, courage, and generosity. He also visited his old home, where Mama Zuri waited with a proud smile. She had watched her son grow from the boy who cried under the baobab tree to the man who inspired an entire village. "You have made them see, my son," she said softly. "You have turned pain into purpose, and now everyone can learn from your life." Tano spent many days in Kawinda, helping people repair homes, teaching children to read, and sharing his knowledge about farming, water, and electricity. Every act reinforced his message that what mattered most in life was the kindness and care we showed others. Villagers slowly changed their ways. They stopped mocking differences and began celebrating them. In the evenings, children would gather around Tano to hear stories about courage, respect, and dreaming big. He told them about his journey from the lonely boy who was laughed at to the man who helped thousands across Africa. They listened with wide eyes, learning that struggles do not define you, but how you respond to them does. Even years later, parents in Kawinda told their children about Tano. "Remember the boy with blue skin?" they said. "He teaches us that kindness is stronger than hate, that courage can overcome fear, and that anyone can make a difference if they believe in themselves." Tano never asked for praise. He stayed humble, walking among the villagers quietly, helping where he could. But his presence, his story, and his actions left a permanent mark on Kawinda. The village had learned a powerful lesson. No one should be judged by how they look, and every act of kindness has the power to change the world. The children who had once mocked him grew up remembering his words. They learned that cruelty only diminishes the person who acts with it, while helping and caring lifts everyone. And so, the story of Tano, the boy with blue skin who faced laughter and pain but chose kindness and courage, was told and retold for generations. Through his life, Tano showed that differences are not weaknesses, that patience and generosity can change hearts, and that every person has the power to leave the world better than they found it. The boy who had been laughed at became the hero everyone admired, not for his wealth or fame but for his heart.